Joining us right now is a very special guest, the CEO of Blackstone, Mr. Stephen A. Schwarzman. Thank you very much, Mr. Schwarzman, for joining us right here on NDTV. My first question to you is, I believe you gave a message to students at the IIT on the future of education in the midst of this pandemic. I want to know from you, how was the experience and what was your message?
Well, I think it was really an honor to talk to the students at IIT Bombay who were graduating on Sunday. And what I said to them is they have to look at the world, not in a way that's depressing, but when things change, there are always enormous opportunities that get created. For the students at IIT and for India generally, what you're seeing is an increased emphasis on technology. People are around the world emphasizing virtual communications. When people stayed in their homes, the only way they could really communicate effectively is virtually. And so this explosion of activity in technology is going to be changing the world. Fortunately, for India, it's a natural skill. And India has the fourth largest ecosystem for developing technology and graduates a huge number of engineers a year who have gone on around the world to run many of the most important tech companies everywhere. And so for individual students, it's important not to get upset about the world. It's important to look at where the opportunities are going to be and pursue those.
Now, Mr. Schwarzman, as a leading investor in India, will your focus now shift to healthcare? Will there be a rethink on prioritizing your investments, given that COVID-19 is a huge, or healthcare is a huge sector that needs investment?
Well, we're very large investors at Blackstone. In India, we have $40 billion worth of companies in real estate. We're the largest office owner in real estate in India, and also have the largest investor in IT companies as well. So for us, we're going to continue to be in that area, which is what we call in America a sweet spot for investing. Other new things, which we also do a lot of in the United States, is healthcare. Because as India's GDP goes up, the need for better healthcare, and India's had a really good history in the pharma business, and I think this is a natural area which India can expand.
Mr. Schwarzman, what sectors will you bet on for the future, the near future, as far as investment in India is concerned?
Well, we are going to be betting in terms of new sectors in logistics, which is part of delivery of services for information technology. We're going to keep buying these types of businesses and expanding them. We may become more active in financial services as India needs additional credit for its people to help grow it. And there are a lot of areas in India. It happens to be our best performing market in the world. And we invest in many different countries. But India has been our #1 country.
Mr. Schwarzman, take us through your book. It's titled What It Takes. At a time you didn't know we'd be in the midst of a pandemic, yet here we are now. Your message to all who have been feeling anxious in these current times.
Well, when I wrote this book, it takes a few years to actually write a book. You'd think it would be faster. But for those of us who have other jobs to do, it takes a while. And what I wanted to do with that book was share what I learned over 50 years, even though I think it's been a much, much shorter time. It's actually been 50 years in the business community, as well as doing things to help my government and doing things in philanthropy. And what I wanted to do was pass along lessons so that people in India and other places in the world could learn and don't have to have the same mistakes that I did. And I wanted to teach them, if you will, share how to accomplish things and build wonderful organizations and make their life better. And to do that, there are 25 rules I've come up with from my life that can be expanded to everyone. For example, if you're going to do something, make sure it's a big thing. Don't do little things, because you spend the same amount of time doing little things or big things. So you should try and do something important. And you should take a lot of time thinking about that, because you only have one bet you can make with your life. So you usually end up spending 100% of your time, work time, doing that. So it's got to be good. When you fail, which we all do, we all make mistakes. It's just not possible to be right all the time. The most important thing is to learn from that mistake, analyze it. Did you have the wrong decision-making approach? Did you have the wrong process? Did you have the wrong people in place to execute that? And what do you need to change, not just to solve the problem you created, but what do you need to change so that type of problem will never occur again? So mistakes, actually, which most people don't pay attention to, they try to make pretend those things didn't happen. That when you concentrate and analyze them, you can make the experience in the future much better for any organization and for the people in it. Another thing is you have to focus on who you hire to work with you and the culture of your organization is really important. If you want to achieve something significant or make your life better, then you need people who share similar values of hard work, openness, integrity, team orientation, cooperation. And if you hire people who are 10s on a scale of 10, things get much easier. If you hire people who are 6s, you spend all your time coping with their mistakes. So it's better not to do that. And if you concentrate on hiring the best people and training them well and being open and including them in decisions from when they're just starting, so they feel they're important members of whatever you're working on, then you get this wonderful sense of teamwork and commitment, and people will work harder, they will work better, they will be happier, and you'll have much better outcomes.
I think this will be seen as a very important mantra by all those who are basically starting up or building a company. That will be great. This is going to be a great lesson in management from Mr. Schwarzman. So thank you so much. My next question to you, Mr. Schwarzman, is about economy. Now, economies around the world have taken a big hit because of COVID-19. What, according to you, will be the certain broad steps that can be taken to get growth back on track?
Well, the first thing you have to do to get growth back on track is make sure the disease is kept under as best control as possible. And to do that, you need to wear masks, you need to have social distancing, you need to wash your hands. Pretty simple things that if you pay attention to that, you can get this disease under much better control. Second thing is there going to be a lot of medical breakthroughs. There will be development of vaccines within the next 6 to 9 months, and the distribution of billions of doses of those vaccines globally over the next approximately year to year and a quarter. And that will make an enormous difference. There'll be another type of medical development, which will come from antivirals, so that when you get sick, the outcome will not be as bad as it was in the beginning of the disease. And what we're finding around the world is that the rate of death is much lower than it was when the disease started, because the healthcare system is learning how to treat patients better. All of this is important to help restart economies. It will not be instantaneous because people remain somewhat fearful and scared. And I think most of the analysts in this area think that certain parts of economies will come back relatively quickly. You know, the part of food delivery services people have to eat, watching media. If they're staying at home, they like to watch a lot of Netflix and other types of amusement and news and other types of things. There'll be other computer-oriented things that happen in games, and you know, there's a variety of things that are starting already and will work. The last things that will happen will probably be air travel and hotels and other things that are viewed as not as important or can be replaced by meetings over computers. But the small businesses are what really need to start, because that really powers economy, not just big companies. And to do that, you need the virtuous circle of people going back to school, back to work. They'll then start spending money on restaurants and other types of services to get going. Most experts around the world think it'll take at least 2 years, some cases 3, to get back where we were in 2019. Now that requires growth. You know, India this year will probably be down around 3%. That's what I think most people think. That's pretty good performance, actually, on a global basis. Not if you're an Indian looking at the old days when India was growing at 9%, being -3 feels like at the end of the world. But in fact, on a global basis, that's not the case. And India will go back to good levels of growth. Most countries view 2020 as a lost year for their economies. Almost everyone will be negative. But in 2021, that will change. You will start getting the growth, and 2022 will be much better still. And so it's a time where it's tough to fight these trends, but you have to have confidence that things will come back in due course, and they will in India, where people are energetic. Education is increasing. The number of 35-year-old and younger people is almost the highest in the world. And these younger people will be more computer literate. They are energetic. They want to go out and make their lives. And that's what helps power the strength of a country like India.
That's exactly what my question was, that in the Indian context, We have seen that the economy was struggling even before COVID-19. How do you think we can reverse this contraction in our economy, Mr. Schwarzman?
Well, part of this happens naturally. Part happens with the central bank keeping interest rates down and funds available for the banking system so they can lend. It's also important, and I know it sounds odd, that the stock market stays at a good level because it gives people more confidence and it makes it easier for companies to raise money, to expand. It's unnatural for India to experience a recession. For those of us who've lived a long time, even really good countries have recessions. It takes a while, usually 6 months to a year. Sometimes it's been as long as a year and a half when growth stays down. But as the birth rate goes up, more and more people need more and more services. And if you can get them out of their houses back into the economy, you will find India will do well. The COVID-19 experience is unprecedented in the world. We have never voluntarily closed the economies of every country in the world. What would you think would happen? A terrible economic thing would happen, and it did. But once you get to the point where you say, we don't want to do this anymore, we don't want to have people just in their houses, we want them to come out, we want them to resume their normal lives. You know, once you start getting vaccines and other types of medicines and people have more confidence, it will naturally take care of itself. And India will get back to much higher rates of growth. I know it's difficult because you don't have the experience of bad economic times. But this situation was not caused by the economy. It was caused by governments all over the world voluntarily to protect their people, stopping economies. And so where we are is that phase is over, and we will come back.
I think, Mr. Schwarzman, that's a very, very positive thing to hear from you and from your experience, that we should not really be as worried as we appear to be. So thank you so much for that. But I want to ask you about India's program of self-reliance. It was announced by the government. Many critics are calling this another form of protectionism. Where do you stand on this issue?
Well, I think that self-reliance is part of what every country is doing to make sure that for certain areas it can provide for itself. For example, in my country, the United States, people are very focused on pharmaceutical self-reliance because what happens if you can't get drugs to treat your own people, then that is regarded as a potentially dangerous situation. Part of the reason that this trend has occurred is not only did all the countries of the world decide to suspend their economies, stop them, but almost everyone put some barriers up for trade because they didn't want people coming in and out. And it made clear that if in that kind of world, which actually should not continue and really has never existed through the global system, will leave countries short of certain things that they need because they depended on the global trading system. So in a way, it was a wake-up call for every country to say, okay, I'm not 100% self-sufficient, but there are certain things I'm missing. What are those things? What is most important to me and to my people? And let's make sure that when we restart the global system, we have some of those very important things that we take care of for ourselves.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Stephen A. Schwarzman. Thank you so much for joining us here on NDTV and sharing your views. Some of the points that you've made are definitely going to spread a little bit of cheer in an otherwise an absolute sense of doom and gloom. Thank you so much, Mr. Stephen Schwarzman, the CEO of Blackstone.
Thank you for having me.